from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, can markets continue to rally on Argentina weather? Plus, after a record harvest, Kentucky farmers are searching for storage. In agribusiness, are moods changing in farm country?
They are still hopeful there's going to be a dry weather event that's going to bail them out.
Citrus expectations continue to fall in Florida, and celebrating the blue and gold for National FFA Week.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Soybean markets returning from the President's Day holiday to set fresh multi-month highs. Now on Tuesday, soybean futures continuing to rally on weather pressures from Argentina's soybean crop. March futures passing the $10.30 a bushel mark and climbing to a fresh 11-month high on those disappointing rains in Argentina over the last few days. Those contracts pulling back during trade later in the day on Tuesday. Meanwhile, soybean meal has also been on the rise, up nearly 25% in the last month and a half. That contract touching a fresh 19-month high for nearbys. Analysts say the last few weeks have been a ride.
March soybeans made a push to the 1040 area, got to 1039 overnight. Couldn't quite get that high in the day session. And then has seen some profit taking come in and perhaps some producers selling as well. Mostly, I think, from U.S. producers, a little bit from Brazil. Corn made it to 370. Once again, could not really push through. And we've seen some liquidation selling in that market, and I think quite a bit of farm selling in that market as well. But with the problems down in Argentina and Brazil for both corn and soybeans, I expect the market to remain supported overall.
Meanwhile, as farmers sell grains during this recent weather rally, in Washington, tax policy writers continue to work on a fix to 199A. The House Ways and Means Committee is gathering a list of new tax law provisions that need to be fixed. The change could be included in a spending bill that lawmakers are aiming to pass by March 23rd. Now, if it's not done by then, Washington policy analyst Jim Wiesmeyer says it's unlikely the bill will be retroactive.
There shouldn't be unintended consequences. In the theory of tax policy, they overdid it. So now they're trying to find out the right middle ground. And there is in the problem, because the longer it stays that way, more and more of the ag co-op members are penciling out their taxes and finding out, wow, don't give it up.
National reporter Betsy Gibbons spoke with folks in Senator Thune's office last week. They say finding a fix that will work for everyone involved has been elusive, but they are getting closer. As farmers prepare for another season of planting, farmers in southern states like Texas have already broken ground. Many of those farmers are still holding on to grain from last year's record crop due to low prices and big supplies in the global market. Now in Kentucky, farmers broke yield records in both corn and soybeans. The statewide average for corn was 178 bushels to the acre, 20 bushels higher than the previous year. The Kentucky soybean yield, 53 bushels an acre, 3 bushels higher. With additional grain, some farmers were running short on storage. In this report provided by the University of Kentucky, Jeff Franklin shows some of the alternatives farmers pressed into action last fall.
2017 corn harvest in Kentucky produced a surplus, leaving producers with a problem: where to put it all while they wait on prices in a depressed market due to supply and demand. Several methods of alternative storage are being used in western Kentucky, from machinery storage sheds to these 10-foot by 300-foot bags that can hold over 11,000 bushels.
So we chose to go with more temporary investment here for this location.
Brian Schaus is using the bags for the first time this year.
So we were very satisfied with putting the grain in the bags. We thought it was efficient, probably even more efficient than some of our smaller bins on some farms further away. So we were pretty satisfied with the conditions here.
Schaus decided to go with the bags because he didn't have time to add more bins when crop yields turned out to be better than projected. Meanwhile, at Hendrickson Farms in Union County, Dan Hendrickson decided to convert this former cattle facility by reinforcing walls, adding aeration fans, and enclosing 3 sides of the building.
And then we just had to go to dumping it in there and then come up with a number. But we had a we was curious at first to kind of see where we could be in the ballpark at on how much you could store in there.
Now it's a challenge for farmers to find a way to use their assets to make the most money, and a way to be profitable is to have a low-cost storage alternative.
University of Kentucky agricultural engineer for grain storage systems, Sam McNeil, has been working on alternatives for grain storage throughout his career. He came up with a spreadsheet for producers to calculate how many bushels they can get in an alternative storage solution.
So in Kentucky this year, we have about 15 million more bushels held on farm than we've had this time last year. Part of that's because of low prices, but some of that corn is in structures like you see here because we did have higher yields than were anticipated.
Sam's spreadsheet has made that very easy for farmers to put in their exact dimensions of their structures, and it will tell them exactly how many bushels that they can hold in that particular structure.
McNeil's calculators and spreadsheets help producers figure out the amount of grain various sizes and types of structures can hold. From the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, I'm Jeff Franklin reporting.
California Central Valley has not escaped this late winter blast. The California Citrus Mutual saying freezing temperatures hit parts of the citrus belt for an extended period. CCM expects there will be some damaged crops, but the extent is unknown. The trade group says growers are about halfway through the navel orange and mandarin harvest. This late in the season, the fruit has higher sugar content, which can act as a natural defense against freeze damage. Meanwhile, parts of the Rockies have seen 30 inches of snow the last few days. Other parts of Utah have seen 22 inches, creating whiteout conditions. It also created a challenge to keep Salt Lake City's airport open. As the storm trekked east, it left 15 inches of snow on the ground in Minnesota, and heavy ice caked about just everything in northern Iowa all the way to central Wisconsin.
I froze for a minute, really. I didn't know what had happened. I mean, I didn't see it coming. I'm just lucky it was my truck and not me.
It's been nonstop. Troopers have just been going from one call to the next.
Say on the bridges, certain areas in the downtown area, we do have little spreaders that we have on the back of our sidewalk units. And we're just putting down a light salt on there. It does a kind of a preemptive strike to, if it does start icing, it'll break up that ice a little bit for pedestrians so they don't fall, hurt themselves.
States further south are dealing with heavy rain. Flooding was hitting states from Texas to the Ohio Valley. At one point yesterday, 30 states were under some form of severe weather alert. Mike Hoffman joining us this morning with a look at weather around the country and today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Well, who knew the cold could look so picturesque? Matt Hotham over in Sumner, Nebraska says his cows are heading over to get some water. The days have been long and cold and the area has been blanketed with snow for a long time now. Thankfully, calving doesn't begin on his operation for another 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully conditions will be better by then. Matt isn't the only one ready for winter to be over. Chris Swenson over in Lancaster, Minnesota, sending us this picture of his son Case, who is also tired of winter. Chris says this is how we feel about feeding cows in February. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see a little bit of wind from Texas into the northeast. Most of the northern plains into the west. Not too windy today. As we head through the afternoon, though, it does pick up a little bit in New Mexico. Checking out tomorrow, you can see, again, not a lot of wind, just a little bit through the lower lakes and Ohio Valley as we start the day. And as we end the day, we see a little bit more wind in Southern California and the Southwest. We'll have your forecast coming up in a few minutes. First, here are some hometown temps.
Ag Day, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the mood in farm country from the Agribusiness Desk. And it's National FFA Week. We'll see what leadership has to say about rising enrollments. Agribusiness following the day off Monday. Let's get more on Tuesday reaction from the floor of the CME Chicago.
All right, it's been an interesting day in the grain markets here today. The wheat market's been a little bit lower all day. Weather seems to be the main culprit there, although the strength in the U.S. dollar index has also been an issue. There are some forecasts for a few showers in some of the western Great Plains. which is so desperately dry that any rain will be welcome. And the U.S. dollar index, currently about 600 points higher, has been very, very strong all day and has hurt the U.S. competitive position for wheat sales. Wheat demand isn't real strong to begin with, so we need all the help we can get. Cattle trading a little bit higher, and the hogs trading significantly higher here over the course of the day. Hog market's really been where the action is today, and the packers remain profitable, so they've been able to increase some bids right now and keep the demand very, very strong after a period when we went through a little bit less demand. Thanks very much. This is Jack Scoble. I'm Vice President of Price Futures Group, here on the CME Group floor with some comments for the markets.
With the latest weather-induced rally, changes to the tax code, and a weaker dollar helping with exports, is it fair to say moods are improving in farm country? Tyne Morgan asked that question in today's analysis.
Here now with Bob Utterback of Utterback Marketing. Bob, the latest Rural Main Street Index came out from Creighton University, and it showed the highest in 4 years. You know, and we're at National Farm Machinery Show, it seems moods are kind of a little bit brighter. What is your take on the overall farm economy right now and farmer moods?
I think the free cash flow is as low as it's been since 2007. I think guys have used their excess cash flow, but cash rents are staying stable, and their margins are relatively tight. But they are still hopeful there's going to be a dry weather event that's going to bail them out. But they are, according to Federal Reserve banks, we're getting more short-term debt being financed to put out this year's crops. I think there's a prevailing attitude that we're going to see more corn acres shift over to beans. There's an underlying anxiety about the meats, is how is NAFTA going to affect the meats rather than the grains as much. But overall, I think guys are optimistic still, but are getting more concerned. Could this thing last? Could this be a couple-year correction wave, and how do they meet that?
You know, another concern, interest rates. When we see interest rates inch up, that really impacts a lot of our farmers out there. What other impact are we seeing from a rise in interest rates?
I think it's more you're seeing guys starting to shift from short-term, long-term financing. I think if you're going to do it, get it done. Secondly, I think you're probably looking at a 1.5 increase in the prime over the next year and a half. That's going to affect spreads, and overall, it will start impacting equity markets. Will equity markets start moving to the commodities, which is coming, but it's ways out there.
So it's not like we're going to see that in the next couple of months.
Not next couple of months. I think it's still way enough in the future. So we'll have to have an equity reversal before that occurs.
All right, Bob Utterback Marketing. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more Ag Day.
To talk with Bob one-on-one, call Utterback Marketing Services, toll free at 800-832-1488.
Uh-oh. Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here looking at the root zone moisture map. And Mike, you can see right there in the middle of the country, that area getting some moisture this week.
And a lot of it. Probably too much too quickly, but when it's that dry, I suppose you can use a fair amount of it. So next week when we show this to you, we'll probably see a dramatic change there from Illinois down on into Arkansas. Now it's still very dry, but it's typically very dry this time of the year back into the Texas Panhandle, but root zone moisture not showing it abnormally dry as much as some of the other areas. But again, this is compared to normal. This is directly from a satellite taken over the country to show us the wet areas and the dry areas compared to normal. Boy, it's extremely dry then in Arizona and starting to get drier and drier into California. But California going to get a little moisture with this system kind of diving down the coast there. Lots of moisture with this system moving through the middle of the country. We've seen this area of rain now for a good 24 to 36 hours, pretty much in the same place. It is finally starting to move. This is this morning. As we head through this afternoon, though, it kind of stays in eastern Oklahoma. Arkansas, as another wave comes up along the front, even though the moisture does move east out of the Great Lakes for the first time in a little while as high pressure builds in. Heading through the day tomorrow, then you can see that next wave kind of causing some rain in the Ohio Valley, but farther north it's going to be a mixture of snow and rain turning over to all snow into the lower Great Lakes. Should be on the light side in those areas, and the system out west continues to kind of dive into the southwest. That's going to add some moisture to that area, and we're going to see some Pacific moisture getting involved with that also as it's moves eastward over the next couple of days into the weekend. Taking a look at precipitation estimates past 24 hours, huge amounts from central Texas all the way into northern Indiana, southeastern Michigan. Adding in the next 36 hours, you can see we're going to add some more in the southern Mississippi Valley, even into parts of the southern plains, but it really is the eastern portions of Oklahoma and Texas getting it, not the western portions, who could definitely use a whole bunch as well. Snowfall estimates, most of it's been in the Rockies and also the Northeast. Adding in the next 36 hours, we're going to see a little bit of a strip of accumulating snow a couple of places across the plain states. High temperatures today, only teens in the northern plains, 70s and 80s in the southeast. Still muggy in the southeast tonight, but lows below 0 in the far northern plains, and basically more of the same tomorrow as that front really doesn't move too much. There's the jet stream. The ridge in the southeast holds for now. We have little troughs coming into the west, moving through the northern tier of states, and still basically a ridge in the Gulf of Mexico as we head into the middle of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Tucson, Arizona, first of all, lots of sunshine and rather cool, high of 61. Duluth, Minnesota, plenty of sunshine and cold, high of 22. And Huntsville, Alabama, partly sunny and warm. Could be a thunderstorm in places, high of 78.
Next on Packer TV, a dim outlook for Florida's citrus sector. We'll have that economic forecast coming up and celebrating the kids in those popular blue jackets.
Ag Day, brought to you by Liberty Herbicide, the simply better solution for superior weed control and a stronger yield.
From our partners at the Packer, the food safety auditing company Equicert is suing the government over the Food Safety Modernization Act. They say the rules are unconstitutional because it holds farmers liable for food safety conditions they can't control and have no knowledge of or responsibility for causing. They're also asking USDA to end food safety audits. The FSMA mandates training, registration, and some on-farm practices. It was signed into law back in 2011. Walmart reporting a near 25% increase in e-commerce sales during the fourth quarter of last year. The company expecting 40% growth in that e-commerce sector again this year, and it's planning to nearly double the number of online grocery pickup locations in the U.S. in 2018. The company will continue to develop a strategy for grocery delivery. USDA's long-term forecast for Florida's citrus industry doesn't really show much promise, but there's slight improvement in the tree nut and vegetable sectors. The Ag Department projecting citrus will continue to suffer declines for the next 10 years. Their analysts expect Florida citrus production will drop from 17.5 billion pounds to 14 billion pounds by the year 2027. That's a 20% drop over the next decade. Now, the biggest problem is citrus greening, and as we've reported, there's currently no known cure for the disease. Veggie and tree nut production is expected to climb a modest 0.6% annually. Next, the blue and gold take a week to celebrate.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com. In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
You may have noticed or heard that this week is National FFA Week in America. And every year members make it their goal to share with local, state, and national audiences why FFA matters and its impact on members. Now, ag leaders, including the Secretary of Ag, Sonny Perdue, getting into the celebration. Now, each day this week includes a specific theme, from Alumni Day to Give to FFA Day to even supporting and sporting the blue, the organization's signature color. Now, nationally, FFA says its chapters and numbers are growing, and they hope it continues.
Well, probably since, I don't know how far back we go, 2010 maybe, I know that our numbers have been increasing every year. Our number of chapters has grown, and we're at all-time record high membership in National FFA. So I know a lot of that is because of an increased push from states to try to get more chapters.
National FFA has an advocacy point person in Washington, D.C., who works closely with the Department of Labor, the Department of Education, also Department of Ag, to make sure the needs for ag programs in the classroom and FFA are not ignored. Hopefully everyone in blue and gold has a great week. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. For Mike Hoffman and all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.